When I read the new Extreme Force Vendread cards, the first thing that came to my mind was that there's so much squandered potential. And then I went back and looked at the article that I wrote about the last wave of Vendreads, and I had forgotten that it was literally named Circuit Break Vendreads Squandered Potential, which tells me that for 2 sets in a row, I have been disappointed by Vendreads, and that really stinks, because when Vendreads were announced, I was so excited, because Vendreads do two things that I love in Yu-Gi-Oh! They're a zombie deck, which you guys know I love Unizombie, and they're a ritual deck, and you guys know that I love pre-preparation of rites, and yet, even with that first release, I felt that they had a lot of potential just with those first 4 cards, because Vendread Origin is one of the craziest ritual spells that I've ever seen, and Konami did really clever card design with it. So it's good because it's a Nekroz Cycle and a Nekroz Mirror bundled into one card, but also, even though it's a generic ritual spell that can be used for any Vendread ritual monster, it includes the specific name of Vendread Slayer in the text, which means it can be searched with pre-preparation of rites. We haven't seen that on a card ever before, and my idea was that every single set we were going to get a new ritual monster and a new ritual spell, and that would have been awesome. And I kind of saw the issues with this deck when it first came out, because the problem with it was that the ritual monsters themselves, or at least the only one that was released at the time, Vendread Slayer, it doesn't do anything without the little Vendread monsters as ritual material, because what happens is the baby ritual monster, or the baby Vendread monsters, if you can kind of call them that, the level 3 and level 4, give ritual monsters that they're used to ritual summon bonus effects. However, those bonus effects only activate if you use those monsters for ritual material while they're on the field. So to get the full value out of Vendread Origin, you want to be banishing the material in the graveyard and summoning the ritual monster from the graveyard, but you don't get when the ritual monster you actually summon after doing that is significantly weaker than if you had used monsters on the field. The problem is that you can see sort of this butting heads, because Vendread Origin is designed to give you really good ritual summons for your card economy, but the ritual monster doesn't do anything unless you take a huge minus in card economy. And it's just a weird situation, but I thought they would figure it out, and then they didn't. the second wave of support is like so bad. I mean, Vendread Chimera is a good card. It's certainly better than Slayer. It's more useful. Its level is better as well, because you can use it for a level 8 synchro monster with Unizombie if you want to after you use its effect. That's kind of cool, but you can't search it with pre-prep, so that's not cool. The field spell is kind of neat. It's basically just a discard any card in your hand to add a Vendread monster from your deck to your hand, so that at least gives you some way to search the ritual monster or the little Vendread monsters. I thought that was kind of neat. The second effect of Vendread Knights doesn't actually matter, and the third little Vendread that came out also is pretty lackluster, not very good stats, not a very good bonus effect, but it was something. I mean, Knights is like a cool card. I'm always a fan of good field spells, and Terraforming's still at 3, so you can play this card and consistently see it. However, I got a little worried when I saw the FA support, because I figured if Konami was giving FAs all this crazy support and they were bad from the start, I kind of figured that they would then say, okay, Vendreads look the best to start out with, and now they're going to get progressively worse support. Very similar to what happened with Subterrors and Spirals, where Subterrors clearly had a win condition out of the gate, and Spirals did not, and yet as sets went on, and as you all know now, Spirals eventually got insane support down the line, where Subterrors just got lackluster support at best. So I saw that kind of happening with this, and I also, to sort of combat that, I was like, okay, Vendread Slayer just got a reprint in the recent OTS pack as a super rare, so maybe Konami wants to push this deck. I was wrong. I was so wrong. We're going to go through the 4 new Vendread cards and prepare to be disappointed. And I love this deck, but I think if you played Vendreads, you just gotta jump ship. You can still play zombie decks. The problem is, even with these new cards, and they're not terrible, they're just painfully mediocre. And I think that's like the most frustrating part, is that if they made them like just utter trash. I could go, okay, they don't care about this deck, they just want us to play FAs or just to play different decks entirely. But they make them almost playable and then add like a weird restriction or a weird stat line that makes them bad. So anyway, let's jump right in. The Little Vendread monster is a level 1 dark zombie type non-tuner with really poor stats, and it does have the easiest summoning condition of any of the Little Vendreads. You just have to banish another zombie in your graveyard to special summon it. That's awesome. The bonus effect is also awesome. What's not so cool is that this card is literally useless unless you use it for ritual summon, because it has terrible stats, it's not a tuner, and all this card is good for is ritual summoning things, and that's not really good enough because the bonus effect doesn't actually gain you advantage, because part of the problem with Vendreads is that when you use the on-field ones for the ritual summons, you really want the bonus effect to give you advantage, sort of like the level 4 Vendread, which actually instantly gets you some momentum, but this card just protects the monster you summon. I mean, that's like fine, it's just not good. It's not good enough to like carry this deck. We can look at the ritual monster as well. A level 7 instead of 5 or 6, 2700 attack points. I mean, that's pretty cool. It also has 0 defense. I know in the last video we talked about Recurring Nightmare and where that card could potentially fit in. Every single Vendread ritual monster does have 0 defense, and Unizombie has 0 defense, so maybe you can make like a Recurring Nightmare Vendread deck possible. The problem is that it doesn't actually matter if you add the ritual monsters back, because, spoiler alert, the only ritual spell we still have is Vendread Origin, and that doesn't really care where the ritual monster is. So Recurring Nightmare still doesn't really have a home, only because adding the ritual monsters back doesn't do anything. Anyway, this card can be ritual summoned with any Vendread ritual spell, which once again is implying that we have others, which we don't. You can banish one Vendread card from your graveyard and declare one type of card, either monster, spell, or trap. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects of that type. If this ritual summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one ritual monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send one Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of it once per turn. The good thing is that the floating effect is pretty useful. The bad thing is the Shockmaster effect is not a quick effect and only can be used on your turn, which means you're only using that to like stop hand traps, I guess. No one really plays trap cards that much. I mean, I suppose you could sort of cheese out a way to dodge evenly match with this, but they're just going to evenly match you when their turn comes around. I can basically never see you calling spells. It's like, what is this? Why is this card not like a literal Shockmaster that at least would make this deck somewhat playable? And yes, I can sort of go with the line of thinking of this card can be kaiju'd, because I hate using that as like an example of why a card is bad, because most cards can be kaiju'd. However, the resources that you have to pile in to summon this thing with as many bonus effects as possible, like let's say you use the level 3 monster and a level 4 monster on board, even if you summon this thing from the graveyard, you're taking a straight -2 in card economy. So if they kaiju it, that's like so much loss advantage. It's just really frustrating. So this card isn't that great. The Shockmaster effect is like so underwhelming. It's like they left the worst parts of the Shockmaster effect, like the worst scenario for Shockmaster, and took away all the good parts and said, here you go, have fun. Anyway, the quick play spell card, instead of the ritual spell card that gives us a quick play, is basically a 1-for-1, but a quick play spell instead of, so it's sort of like an E-Telly where you discard. Just, I guess it's like the baby of 1-for-1 and E-Telly. It's neat. I'll give it that. It's like the only good new release that they have here. They're sort of reminding me of like Subterras now, where like all the cards except like the one spell they get every set is like complete trash. But I don't know. They're not that bad. They're not as bad as the Subterras that they kept giving us, because at least... But it's like, are these cards not bad only because they're like zombies and they have so much support already, or are they not bad because they're actually not bad? And I think the more I think about it, they're only not bad because they're zombies. Anyway, though, yeah, Vendread Charge is good. The thing I like about this card is that it lets you play one copy of each of the little Vendreads, and then you can just tutor them out of the deck, because this thing obviously can't summon the ritual monsters. So it's only meant to summon the little guys. I think that's kind of cool. I think best case scenario would be discarding Mizuki, to special summon the level 4 Vendread, or possibly level 1 Vendread. Doing some cool combos with that. But the rest of the deck doesn't really have a backbone yet, so I don't know if this card, like when you look at like the FA quick play spells that are like insane, and they have like 2 really good effects that just keep getting better as the game goes on, and that deck has like a lot more good cards compared to the Vendread archetype. And like if FA's got a card like this, and they kind of do have a card like this, except you blow up a card instead of discarding a card, it makes like a huge difference for that deck, and that's not all that card does. But when you just have like a 1-for-1 card, that's also an E-Telly is limited to once per turn, and can't really summon anything too outrageous. They just summon basically normal monsters, because all of the little Vendreads don't have any on-field effects. All they are is sort of, they have a revival effect usually, and then they have a bonus effect, but they're basically normal monsters unless you can use them for ritual summon. I don't think this card is that good. It's sort of like an unexpected die, except that you have to discard for it. It's a card where you look at it and you say, if this was in any other archetype, it'd probably be broken, but in Vendreads, probably not. The last card is a trap card. Discard 1 card, then target 1 Vendread monster and 1 ritual spell in your graveyard. Special summon that monster in defense position, and if you do, add that ritual spell to your hand. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 5 of your banished sign monsters, shuffle them into the deck, then draw 1 card. You can only use each effect of Vendread Revolution once per turn. It's like a trap card that is kind of slow. I mean, the banishing effect is cool. The problem is, by that point, you would have had to... You most likely, even if you banish 3 Mizukis that game, you would have to then also ritual summon 1 monster. If you only banish 2 Mizukis, you'd have to ritual summon like 3 monsters, or do 2 really heavy. I don't know. It's just like one of those things where, I mean, I just talked about Pot of Acquisitiveness, and playing that card in like Zombies or Phantom Knights or Frogs, decks that all willingly banish cards all the time, and even getting 3 banished monsters is kind of tough. I suppose that this card has a slight upside because that's the secondary effect. The problem is the primary effect isn't really that good. We have so many different cards that this deck is demanding you to discard for. The trap card, the quick play spell card, the field spell, all these things that sort of minus you in card advantage, and then they also want you to ritual summon, taking a minus in card advantage, all to sort of tack on these pretty good but not amazing bonus effects to these lackluster ritual monsters. And I'm just like, why do I have to jump through so many hoops? It almost feels like the olden like structure deck boss monsters, where they're like just have one weird restriction on them. In the case of the boss monsters, a lot of times it was, oh, they can't be special summoned, and also their effect only triggers like when they're tribute summoned, not just regularly normal summoned. And it was like, why are you even attacking on this like bad part when they already weren't good? That's what reading the Vendread cards seems like. It's like, why are you making these cards worse than they have to be already? And I just, at this point, I don't know what 4 cards they could possibly give us in the next set. I mean, if they went really crazy and like the next set was like a Necros of Trishula card and then 3 ritual spells to make up for these Vendread monsters that don't have ritual spells, maybe that would make it playable. But I think at this point, really just put all your chips in FAs, because all the FA cards that are new are really good. And I think that deck's like way more playable than this. If you're playing Vendreads for fun, I mean, by all means do so. But really, you'll play enough test hands and you realize, okay, this deck is only good when I don't draw the Vendreads and when I actually just draw the Shiranui cards, and that means you probably should cut the Vendreads. But anyway, that's my analysis of these cards. I wanted them to be good so bad, and yet I'm just getting disappointed. The good news is the FA cards are insane. If you haven't seen me talk about those, I'll put that at the end of the video here. Make sure to check that video out, because the FA cards are so much better than these. And it's crazy because the FA deck looked really bad on release, looked like a complete joke, and now they're suddenly like 100 times better than Vendreads. Yeah, I think I've ranted enough about these cards. I'm actually just sick of looking at them. I'm disgusted that Konami would print cards these bad. I guess we're playing FAs now. It's A-okay. But I'll see you guys later. Bye.